Departure, 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 departure. Two big steps, two big steps, two big steps collective.
Oh, dang! I would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Um, it is such an ongoing process of learning and unlearning and finding out ways that we can progress as a group of people and support one another. As peoples and settlers on this land and arts makers, we are continuing to strengthen and encourage our practice to really educate ourselves on the history and moving forward to shift from these structures that have been in place. Hi, welcome to our talkback where Katie and I are doing the talkback that you all want to see, and we drink cocktails and talk about art.
Cheers.
Clink, cheers.
I was wondering, maybe let's just start at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What your first inspiration was to create Departure?
I think initially when I was creating Departure, I was thinking about traumatic events that had happened in my life, and specifically one that had happened within the last 10 years. And I was really attached to this as being part of my identity, and I was going to work through it and part of this cathartic process, but also as a way to offer and create stories around these topics. And since that point in time, it's really digressed and shifted from this idea of trauma and moving more into how we hold and store memories in the body, which include this range of experiences. Because as I was exploring this and I was becoming unattached to, or just, I guess, transforming in this process, I realized that it wasn't this one event that had happened to me that was so poignant. It was several that had happened prior to that, from childhood and just the early years as well, and first family. So, yeah.
Marissa, I was wondering about the quilt.
Initially, this piece was going to be called Quilt or some form of that. So the quilt is all of my old dance costumes and clothes from high school. I literally have my high school sweatpants in there,
Nice.
a onesie, and old ballet costumes. Oh my goodness! And each of them represent this idea, and the quilt as a whole represents this idea of history and how that can't be changed. But my relationship to each of these patches on this quilt changes as I work through different things or as I age, and as my experiences and I gain more experiences, the quilting becomes stronger and maybe neater, and then and then it's just this idea of history and the fact that ancestrally or even at this moment in time in life or this lifetime, that those factors can't be changed. And each piece of clothing is actually wearable, so I've kind of sewn it in a way so each piece you can put on at any moment in time. So there's a chef's jacket in there. I've worked in culinary, so it also is this visual representation of my history, to some degree. And yeah, that part of it and the quilt is history, it's ancestry, it's the parts of my life that I can't change, the experiences that I've had, and the piece and the rest of the improvisation that we were talking about is how I relate to that history. The voices in my head are those that are happening within each section of the beep test, which is the kind of subsequent 30 or 40 minutes leading up to that. And I kind of go on this journey of really unveiling or unraveling these different parts of me as I relate to this history. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so Katie presented this piece as part of Made in BC earlier this spring, and I've had the pleasure of talking with her about this idea and watching it shift and grow since we were supposed to perform it last year. And I was thinking about relationships, and I was thinking about friendships and how we relate to one another. And right now, and it's hard not to talk about COVID, especially when we think about friendships, we think about relating. How COVID was such an unexpected entity that entered into midway through that process, and how did that really shift when there was no longer the ability to present touch or to present proximity on stage? How did that shift for you?
Yeah, so I guess I went into creating the duet and like knowing that we wouldn't be able to touch, or like at least for like maybe the first part of the process. And that was something I talked with Sarah and Sophie about. Like, I think the first time we met, I was like, we were like, let's talk about our boundaries, like what's everyone comfortable with. And I think it was like August, so there wasn't very strict restrictions. It was kind of like make your own, build your own adventure or whatever. So we had talked about being like, we'll go into the studio, but we'll stay distant the whole time, kind of thing. So I guess that was just like part of it from the beginning. So I guess like my imagination in creating the duet, once we got into the studio, just like took that into account. And I thought, or I'm hopefully later I'll have the time to go back in and have them touch, because I think it also changed. Like initially the idea was that it was going to be this friendship or this relationship that had been like happening for like a long time, when we were kind of like capturing it at a certain moment. But I realized that without touch, like touch is such an easy way to show intimacy, especially like intimacy over a long period of time, like how you touch someone else is like, it really shows a history. And so I think when we went into the studio in October, we were like trying to build these like certain moods, being like, okay, like a certain dynamic, but it just like didn't make sense. And so then we like came back to it more as like, you're meeting, because then it made a lot more sense to have the distance, like you don't know each other, and then you meet and then you proceed from there. So I guess that was a big shift.
So do you is now the relationship between them something that is that we're observing a long endured friendship throughout the piece, or is it something that is developing? How do you view this relationship between these two dancers or these two people that you're working with?
So it's like at the beginning, it's like they're in different worlds. They're in different worlds. And then it's like the beginning is like they're in different worlds. And then there's the moment where they meet and they have like a look. And then it's kind of like tentative, like, like, hey, do you want to like hang out, go for a drink? And it's like, yeah, like, do you want to? It's like, it's like that kind of like, we were kind of working with like that feeling of when you have like mutual admiration for someone. So it's like you both like want to be friends, but you're not sure, And then it kind of develops from there into more of like there's something here between us. And then I think more towards the end, there's kind of like the beginnings of like complexity and conflict. Where it's kind of more like, okay, there's like more time sewn into this, and there's like, like a more complexity, and like, that's what I imagine it as.
So Katie made a duet about our relationship as two friends. I do have to ask, are they, what's their relationship as dancers or as people in life?
So Sarah and Sophie have known each other for like a lot longer than I thought they had, actually. I think like they kind of grew up together in a sense. I think they said, I can't remember when they said they met, but it was like young.
Cool.
Yeah, like I think they said it might have been like 12. They definitely like went through high school and like dance training together, which yeah, like I didn't realize that before we started.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was really nice to have that dynamic in the room of like, I guess people who knew also how to dance together and like how to rehearse together, you know, because it was like, yeah, I just could like see there was like communication. And like, I think in the piece, there's a lot of communication that I can see happening, you know, like there's like a lot of um, parts that like aren't timed. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they just kind of move through the sections and like the timing can be quite different, but I can really see, yeah, that there's like a long-term communication happening, which is, yeah, really cool. Should we talk about 2 Big Steps?
Yeah, 2 Big Steps was this place where we just explored so much and went through these different journeys as a collective. And I think that one thing that's so important to say is I really value the fortitude and time and energy that we all put into the collective as we were navigating, you know, how do we write a grant, or how do we create these opportunities for ourselves, or how do we speak to presenters. And I think it really propelled a lot of different opportunities. Katie and I went to San Francisco twice together to perform. One was a road trip, and the other time we said, oh my gosh, we
Yeah, one
can't.
time we drove. And
Yeah, one time we drove, and then the second time we took a plane, which was also great. Um, and yeah, providing these different opportunities to perform, to present, to connect with the community, and also help ourselves grow in this demanding career that we have to be so diverse and versatile in all of the knowledge and training that we have. And I think that I know myself, I wouldn't be here without all of you and all of the experiences that we went on together. And it really actually it's funny because we talk about your piece, and we're talking about this way of relationship and these beginnings and endings, and it's very obvious that you would find that in a romantic relationship. You know, it's very conventional that, you know, you get with a partner and then there's an ending of a relationship, or maybe it doesn't, and then it, you know, something else begins. But I think that one thing we don't talk about is this idea that this process doesn't leave when we're talking about careers, or it doesn't change when we're talking about friendships. And it doesn't mean that 2 Big Steps, you know, we're breaking up the band and we're not all going to be friends anymore. But I think that it also is just knowing when something is ending and recognizing that, and not having that not be this space where, okay, it's ending and it's negative, and but a space for new growth, and a space for all of us to now disseminate and take all of the knowledge that we have and pass it along to new people. That's brilliant. That's just that passing along and that engaging in community. And I think initially when I was thinking about the collective, that was what I wanted to do.
yeah, it really amazes me when I think about like the first couple of years of the collective. And it's like we were so driven and like hungry, I guess, to like, you know, for like every opportunity and to like really try stuff out. And like, I don't know, I guess just like figuring out how to make the collective sustainable for all of us. But like, I don't know, it's just like I feel like it's like so amazing, and I see so many like new collectives popping up, and I'm like, this is, you know, it's like it's so amazing to see just like a group of people decide like we're gonna make our work, we're gonna like make time to rehearse together, you know, and like that kind of motivation and drive is, I think, what makes this community so strong, and like the opportunities that are available for collectives that pop up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think it also, yeah, it seemed like a very natural ending.
Yeah, it feels like these new paths, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to collaborate ever again, but it does mean that within the structure, at least, we are finding new ways that are going to support us, and moving with what that is, rather than being stuck and rigid in that format, or being stuck in that place. It's allowing that to now blossom and see where new beautiful places can take us too.